Hi, I'm Pete Wishart. I'm the chair of the Scottish Affairs Committee, and it's great to be in Orkney today.
Andrew Bowie, Member of Parliament for West Aberdeenshire and Kincardine, and a member of the Scottish Affairs Committee, and delighted to be here.
Wendy Chamberlain, Member of Parliament for North East Fife, visiting Orkney for the second time in my life.
Hi, well, Pete, you chair the Scottish Affairs Committee, so could you perhaps explain to our readers why you felt it necessary the committee came to Orkney?
Well, we're doing a new inquiry into the available resource and renewables in Scotland ahead of the COP26 conference coming to Glasgow. And we had to come to Orkney as part of that, because what Orkney doesn't just do renewables, marine renewables, it leads the world in what it does. So we've come here just to learn a little bit more about what's happening, get shown some of the plant, some of the resource, to speak to people about some of the difficulties and issues, as well as some of the opportunities it presents itself. I don't think any of us would feel that we'd have a report on Scottish renewables without coming here and learning more about what's happening in Orkney. And what we've seen so far, it is really exciting. We know that there's challenges, but we also know that what's happening here is world class and is leading the world in terms of what it's presenting.
One of the things many people in Orkney would see is what are the benefits to us, because we have such a high rate of fuel poverty. And Homestart Orkney recently produced a report with their users where the cost of electricity was the number one problem for them, and it was affecting their mental and physical health. What would your committee be able to do about those issues?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? We live in an energy-rich island that has more capacity than practically any other part of Scotland, and we've still got real issues to deal with, fuel poverty, and that remains a challenge for every sector of government. I think what we've got here is massive opportunities for the people of Orkney. I mean, more people work in renewables here than practically any other sector of the island, and it presents job opportunities. That's not taking away anything to do with all the other associated issues to do with fuel poverty, which have to be addressed. We're here primarily to look at the renewable resource, just to see how much that contributes to the mix in Scotland and where it could lead in terms of some of the scientific innovation, and we're here to look at that. But I've heard this before, and it's the second time when I've come to Orkney this has been presented to me as a real issue in the island, and it is just absurd that we have all this going on here and there's still people who experience this. And I think that what that tells us more than anything else is that we need to look at ways to ensure that the energy that's produced here gets on to the grid and into mainland Scotland and serves and supports people right across whole Scotland. Some of that wealth comes back to the people of Orkney so they can address these issues. I understand how serious it is, but our job here primarily is to look at the renewable resource.
Andrew, can I ask you, and it's sort of on the same subject, that there's a 22% carbon tax on our electricity bills here. Is there anything your committee could do to maybe get rid of those from our bills?
Well, like Pete says, we're primarily here to look at the renewable sector and see what we can do to recommend to both the UK and Scottish governments what they can do to meet some of the challenges that are faced here in Orkney. I've heard this before, the carbon tax is putting a lot of pressure on businesses and individuals, and the best way that we can combat that is tackling some of the challenges faced by the renewable sector to get some of that wealth back into Orkney so that we can drive down the cost to consumers, to businesses, and people can reinvest here in the island, and local people can actually feel the benefits so that carbon tax won't be such a burden on them as we move forward. The government are having to look at huge ways, because the climate crisis that we are facing is going to take a lot of dealing with in many different ways. The carbon tax is just one of them. If we are able to offset that, for want of a better phrase, by increasing our investment in renewables and making that much more of a success, which you can do here, we've seen that, then the carbon tax will become less a burden on people, and that really has to be the aim.
Can I ask what has most impressed you in your visits this weekend?
I think what's impressed me has been the real community sense that is here in Orkney. As I say, I've only been here once before. But second of all, the real enthusiasm in the sector, the creativity, the innovation. And people are rightly proud of what Orkney is doing in this space. And I think the key thing, and both Pete and Andrew have mentioned that, is then how does that benefit the wider community? It's all very well for renewables to be developing this new innovation technology if the end point is that people are heating inefficient homes and therefore suffering issues like fuel poverty. So I've been really impressed with the enthusiasm, and they know the problems, the sector, but actually they know the answers as well. So it's our role as a committee to listen to them and take those recommendations back through our final report.
So, Pete, just to sum up, can I ask what happens next once you've done the report? What's the process and what happens to it?
What we want is a report which is in place, which gets a good sense of what Scotland is doing in terms of renewables in advance of COP26, and we know that's only a few months away. This is a huge opportunity for Scotland to be showcased and presented right around the world, and what we want to try to do with this report is to tell a story, just exactly what Scotland's got to offer to this debate. So what we'll be doing is preparing a report to the UK government, which will suggest a number of conclusions and recommendations on how things can be moved on. I think what coming here, we want to make sure that the things that are happening in Orkney will be centre stage in that report, and we're able to present a success story about what could happen in an island community that's, made sense and made part of this resource, leads the world in terms of renewables, and make sure that that is going to be part of the story we're telling about the whole renewable sector in Scotland.
Is there anything anybody else wants to add? Any points they feel they'd like to cover?
Not really, only to say that the hospitality and the welcome from the Arcadians this weekend has been absolutely incredible, and the real positivity around the renewable sector has been very heartening to see. Yes, there's a lot of challenges that we as a committee will now take back and produce a report and recommend to government that they tackle. But goodness me, there is a real willingness in Orkney to actually develop this and to make this the real beating heart of the renewables revolution, which is taking place not just across Scotland but across the world.